take a moment. Breathe in and allow your awareness to sink gently into that quiet inner room where deeper understanding takes shape. Most people imagine heartbreak as something loud, something dramatic, chaotic, or overflowing with visible emotion. But when a Sigma male experiences heartbreak, an entirely different process unfolds. There is no shouting, no frantic attempts to hold on, and no desperate display of loss. Instead, he retreats into a silence so deep and steady that those around him can sense a shift, even if they cannot explain it. A Sigma male has spent most of his life mastering solitude. He relies on his own reasoning, his own emotional grounding, and his own inner world. He does not love impulsively. He does not attach without intention. His heart is not easily accessed, and when he chooses to let someone in, it is a deliberate, meaningful choice. So when that rare trust is broken, the impact is not theatrical, but it is profound. What happens inside him is like a quiet earthquake beneath the surface. You cannot see it, but you can feel the rearrangement of everything built above it. This is why his heartbreak can seem unsettling to those who witness it. Not because he collapses, but because he transforms. He withdraws, not to hide, but to recalibrate. A Sigma male processes pain by analyzing it, understanding it, and stripping it down to its core truths. He studies the experience as if it were data, dispassionately, thoroughly, and with a long-term perspective. In this period of introspection, he begins to identify what no longer aligns with the man he is evolving into. He releases people, habits, and emotional patterns that once held meaning, but no longer serve his growth. His silence is not emptiness, it is restructuring. It is the lone wolf stepping deeper into the forest, not out of fear, but out of instinct, returning to the place where his strength is rebuilt. In that stillness, the Sigma male undergoes a subtle but powerful metamorphosis, one that determines who he becomes next, how he moves forward, and what new boundaries will define his life. And today, we're going to explore exactly what unfolds inside that silence. Let's begin. Point 1, he withdraws into deep, intentional solitude. When heartbreak touches a Sigma male, the very first instinct is not to react, but to retreat. This solitude is not isolation born of despair. It is a deliberate movement from the external world into the internal one. A Sigma male understands intuitively that human emotion is not something to project outward, but something to observe from a place of quiet detachment. Imagine a scientist entering a controlled environment to study an intricate phenomenon. That is the Sigma's mind during heartbreak. He steps back from social interactions not because he cannot face others, but because he no longer wishes to absorb unnecessary noise. He removes himself from group settings, reduces conversations, and allows his nervous system to settle into neutrality. This process can last days, weeks, sometimes months. Psychologically, this is known as emotional recalibration. The Sigma male refuses to drown in the collective emotional narratives society expects from men. Instead, he creates space, broad, silent space, where he can assess the situation without the distortion of impulse or the influence of external opinions. To others, his disappearance can feel cold, distant, or even alarming. But to the Sigma, this solitude is the foundation for clarity. He knows that emotional turbulence does not resolve itself through expression. It resolves itself through understanding, and understanding requires quiet. In this solitude, he reconnects with the parts of himself that may have softened or stretched to accommodate the relationship. A Sigma male is self-contained by nature. When he shares his life with someone, he naturally expands to make room for them. So when heartbreak comes, he contracts, not in a negative sense, but in the same way a muscle contracts to regain strength. This contraction is a return to internal equilibrium. Instead of seeking validation, comfort, or distraction, he begins evaluating the deeper lessons embedded in the experience. He notices patterns, traces emotional triggers, and reflects on the boundaries he may have allowed to blur. He does not blame himself, nor does he villainize the other person. He simply studies the truth as it is, without embellishment. And as days pass, something subtle but powerful happens. The Sigma male begins rebuilding. Quietly, without announcement, he strengthens the mental structures that define his independence. His focus sharpens, his goals regain priority, his emotional world reorganizes itself into calm order. To most people, this phase appears uneventful, but to the Sigma male, it is the essential reconstruction of his inner architecture. It is here, in the silent chamber of solitude, that he transforms heartbreak into wisdom and emerges even more self-possessed, steady, and untouchable than before. Point 2, he conducts a quiet, honest autopsy of the relationship. Once the Sigma male has returned to his internal world, a deeper and more intricate process begins to unfold, one that is almost invisible to the outside world, yet profoundly transformative within him. He analyzes the relationship not through the haze of emotion, but through the lens of quiet, deliberate reasoning. There is no vindictiveness in his reflection, no desire to assign fault or inflate ego. Instead, he enters the role of a detached observer, studying the timeline of the connection as though it were a psychological case file rather than a personal catastrophe. Modern psychology calls this cognitive processing, an intentional method of examining emotional events without allowing those events to shape or distort your identity. And while many people avoid this process because it can be uncomfortable, the Sigma male steps into it willingly. He begins to ask himself questions most individuals never dare to explore. What did I contribute to this dynamic? What patterns were present that I ignored? What truths were whispered to me that I chose not to hear? Which needs were expressed and which remained unspoken or unmet? He is not searching for blame, he is searching for truth. To a Sigma male, truth holds far more value than emotional comfort. He would rather face a difficult reality than cling to a soft illusion. This pursuit of clarity invites him into deeper territory. The process can be painful, not because it destroys him, but because it illuminates hidden pieces of himself that remain silent during the relationship. Old wounds that still remember their origin. Subconscious expectations shaped long before adulthood. Unspoken fears that influenced his behavior and assumptions he never realized he held. But unlike most men, the Sigma does not retreat into defensiveness. He does not push responsibility outward or rewrite the story to protect his pride. If he contributed to the downfall, he faces it with honesty and humility, without spiraling into self-criticism. If the other person contributed, he acknowledges it without bitterness, recognizing human imperfection without assigning moral superiority. It is within this unfiltered honesty that the Sigma male reaches a rare state, clarity, a clear, undistorted understanding of what truly happened, free from emotional distortion or ego preservation. And this clarity becomes the foundation upon which his transformation is built. He does not heal by avoidance. He does not heal by distraction. He heals by seeing reality as it is. And in that understanding, he begins to rise anew. Point 3, he upgrades himself instead of seeking validation or revenge. Once the Sigma male reaches clarity, a shift occurs, the emotional fog lifts, and a new disciplined energy begins to take shape. Many men try to win the breakup through performance, attention-seeking, or superficial achievements, but the Sigma male sees no value in proving himself to someone who is no longer part of his life. Instead, he quietly begins to improve. He might return to old routines that he had paused. He might start reading more, training harder, sleeping better, or refocusing on long-term goals that had been sidelined. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, the profound development that occurs after emotional adversity. For the Sigma male, this is not a theory, but a lived experience. He does not run toward distraction, he gravitates toward evolution. His heartbreak becomes the raw material from which he forges a higher, more resilient version of himself. His inner reservoir of discipline deepens, his standards sharpen, his masculine core strengthens in ways that others cannot easily see, yet they can always feel. He does not view heartbreak as evidence of failure. Instead, he interprets it as proof that he was capable of deep emotional investment, and anything genuine, whether successful or not, always carries wisdom within it. In this phase of rebuilding, subtle but powerful changes begin to unfold. His silence becomes stronger, no longer heavy with emotion, but steady with intention. His presence becomes sharper, radiating a quiet confidence rooted in self-respect. His focus becomes more intense, directed toward goals that truly matter rather than temporary feelings. People may not know what he is doing behind the scenes, but they sense the transformation taking place. This is the moment when the Sigma male begins to ascend into a more refined version of himself, not for attention, not for revenge, and not to spark envy, but because growth is his natural response to pain. He knows that emotional wounds can either weaken a man or sculpt him, and he chooses the latter every time. While others spiral, he recalibrates. While others chase validation, he increases his internal value. While others look backward, he evolves forward. Heartbreak does not break the Sigma male. It refines him, sharpens him, focuses him, and ultimately ushers him into a higher chapter of self-mastery that he may never have reached without the pressure that pain created. Point 4. He closes the door quietly, calmly, and completely. Something unique happens once a Sigma male reaches the point of emotional clarity and personal renewal. He does not go back. Where many men revisit old connections, reopen old wounds, or entertain old flames, the Sigma male does the opposite. Once he decides the chapter is closed, it becomes irreversibly closed. This is not emotional coldness. It is emotional integrity. A Sigma male values trust at the highest level. And once trust is fractured, the bond that once held meaning dissolves. He does not return out of loneliness or nostalgia. He does not negotiate for temporary comfort. He does not allow mixed signals or emotional ambiguity. His boundary becomes absolute. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of Sigma psychology. People assume he doesn't care. But the truth is that he cares so deeply, so intensely, that reopening the wound would be a violation of his own emotional code. When he walks away, it is quiet. There are no dramatic speeches, no final arguments, no sarcastic remarks, just calm acceptance. And as he moves forward, he does so with a level of emotional maturity that many fail to recognize in the moment. The Sigma male's silence isn't a retreat. It's a conscious realignment. It is the final act of reclaiming his peace. Because while others may cling to the familiar even when it hurts them, the Sigma male refuses to remain where his spirit can no longer grow. His departure is not impulsive. It is the result of long reflection, internal dialogue, and a deep understanding of what he truly deserves. And because Sigma males are rare, emotionally grounded, introspective, and self-contained, his absence often leaves a strong impression. People realize too late that his presence was stabilizing, grounding, and irreplaceable. They recall how he brought calm where there was chaos, clarity where there was confusion, and depth where there was superficiality. But by the time they understand the value of what they lost, the Sigma is already gone. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. He knows that doubling back only delays the growth he fought so hard to achieve. For a Sigma male, the past is not a place to return to. It is a place to learn from. And once the lesson is complete, he walks forward, quietly, confidently, and without hesitation. Point 5, he rediscovers his purpose with renewed intensity. After closing the emotional chapter, the Sigma male enters a phase that is not just restorative, but profoundly transformative. His focus returns with a silent force, and he reclaims his mission, his goals, and his masculine direction with renewed clarity. During the relationship, he may have dimmed certain parts of himself, his routines, his solitude, or his purpose to create balance. This is not weakness. It is emotional maturity. He gives intentionally without needing applause. But after heartbreak, something dormant reawakens. The parts of himself he once set aside rise stronger, sharper, and more disciplined than ever. This is often the period where major milestones unfold. Career breakthroughs surface because his mental bandwidth is no longer split. Creative ideas flow effortlessly as emotional energy redirects inward, fueling his purpose. His physical transformation accelerates as he channels pain into structure and strength. His business decisions become clearer, strategic, and free from emotional distortion. Spiritually, his solitude shifts from emptiness to clarity, and his personal reinvention begins, not to impress anyone, but to reclaim the man he paused. This rebirth happens because the Sigma male possesses a rare ability. He transforms pain into progress. His heartbreak becomes momentum. His solitude becomes fuel. His discipline becomes precision. And in the end, he emerges not as who he was, but as the evolved version, calmer, wiser, resilient, and aligned with the man he was always destined to become. Point 6, he returns to the world, stronger, quieter, and more selective. When the Sigma male finally reemerges, when the silence fades and the storm settles, he is not the man he was before. His heartbreak has reshaped him, strengthened him, matured him. What once wounded him now becomes the very catalyst that sharpens his inner world. He becomes more deliberate with his time, more protective of his peace, and far more selective about who gains access to the quiet chambers of his mind. He no longer entertains relationships that lack emotional intelligence, maturity, or reciprocity. He no longer bends his boundaries to make others comfortable. He no longer justifies red flags that once slipped through the cracks of his empathy. His discernment becomes one of his strongest traits, allowing him to see people not through their words, but through their patterns. And to the outside world, this new version of him can feel intimidating. Not because he is unkind, but because he is unshakably grounded. He now carries a calm, stable, masculine presence, a presence built not through ego, but through inner reconstruction. He laughs differently. He listens differently, he chooses differently, he lives differently. And this final stage of transformation is what makes the Sigma male so profoundly unique. He does not allow heartbreak to weaken him. He allows it to sculpt him into a more refined, purposeful, emotionally sovereign man. By the time he returns to the world, he is not seeking love, he is seeking alignment, not validation, but resonance, not company, but peace. And that peace becomes the foundation of his future. This is why the heartbreak of a Sigma male is often described as terrifying, not because he becomes destructive, but because the quiet evolution he undergoes makes him stronger than ever. So strong that the world can feel the difference simply by being in his presence. And so, as we come to the end of this long, quiet exploration, take a moment to sit with everything you've heard. Feel the stillness that rises when truth is spoken gently, because the journey of a Sigma male through heartbreak is not a downfall, it is a transition, a quiet turning of the inner wheel, a shift from one version of self into another. If you too are walking through this, you are not broken, you are becoming. What feels like loss is often the clearing of the path. What feels like silence is often the rebuilding of your foundation. And what feels like solitude is the return to your natural state of strength. Remember this, a Sigma male does not rise through noise. He rises through understanding, through patience, through the steady reclaiming of his identity. If this message has reached something deep within you, allow it to guide you gently back to yourself. Your path is not behind you. It unfolds from this moment forward, quietly, steadily, and in alignment with the man you are meant to become. Thank you for sharing this time, this stillness, and this reflection. Until the next lesson, walk with intention, walk with clarity, and walk with the quiet confidence of a man who knows his worth.